What's up, everybody? What's up? This your boy Doc Holliday. We're back with another HBCU Overdrive live stream, afternoon stream. If you haven't done it by now, make sure that you like the stream, comment, share. Most of all, subscribe to the channel, become an Overdrive fan, and get everything exclusive for the channel. And hit that notification bell to get everything HBCU Overdrive. So now, as you see the title of the show. How we doing? We're gonna have a casual conversation. We're gonna have a casual conversation. Uh, but I want to bring in uh two of my guys right here. We got Herbert Stewart and we got Randall Barnes. Bring it in, man.
Hey,
What's going on?
what's up,
So what's up? What's up? We got
Guys, how y'all doing, man?
We good, man.
man?
We got a
Man.
Bama State grad, a Fort Valley State grad, and a Jackson State alum. So
Great pair. That's a great pair.
oh yeah, what more can you have? What's going on, man?
Man, I'm just lucky you caught a brother while he was working at home remote today. Before getting pick up,
Hey,
just
man.
slide in.
Hey man, it's cool because everybody's gonna come in. I got one of my moderators, Amber. How you doing, Amber? Make sure we keep the chat clean and respectful. Any type of trolls, just tell them thank you for your views and then kick them out. So that's how we're gonna do it here. We're gonna keep it classy, but if you want me to get ratchet, I can get with the shits. So I just want everybody to know that. I just want everybody to know that. Don't think because I'm 6'4" and I got this great smile and everything that I won't get in your ass. But we gonna keep it. We gonna keep it. We gonna keep it real. We gonna keep it cool, calm, and collected, man. So what's up, man? What's going on? Tell me what's going on in the world, HBCU right now. I know Herb, you gonna be following the MEAC tournament this
Yeah,
week.
amongst
Okay,
amongst other things, MEAC tournament, SWAC tournament. I'm already following the D2 and NAIA tournaments on both men's and women's. We'll probably do a special space for HBCU Hoops Weekly. Um, probably coming up this Friday, and me and Coach Payne and some other folks. Um, we're gonna be breaking some stuff down. I was on the Golden Boot show. I was on the Golden Boot podcast last night.
oh yeah,
Kind
how
of
was
doing.
that?
That was dope, man. That was really fun. That was really fun to do. Those guys are dope. They've been doing their thing, man. And of course, even though we were talking basketball, we had some Deion Sanders stuff creep in there.
Right.
It's just like it's at this point it's kind of it's kind of like the fungus that doesn't go away. But I mean, it's par for the course. It's kind of what it is at this point until football season comes around and he start getting them Pac-12 experiences.
And I say it like this: every time it comes around with Deion opens his mouth with look, it's one thing they say this with is see that's the whole thing about it. That's the whole thing about it because we get tired of listening to it. And we got my boy Randall Barnes. Uh, you run HBCU Post, right? And
Yes,
you
sir.
got on Sirius Satellite Radio, man. So that kudos to
Congrats,
you
that's just
for
huge right there, man.
Thank you.
Congrats.
for getting that out there, for having our platform, our HBCU platform, to be out there on Sirius Satellite Radio. So y'all give it up to my boy Randall Barnes. He be in these Twitter streets too. So
Yeah, man.
He be having his opinions about things, but he keep it cordial.
Yo,
I
man,
try.
it's just think about it, brother, on those serious XM streets.
Oh yeah, but you know what, man? Listen, with Kurt, we got to get you on, man. Listen, you did. I said this in one of the D2 spaces one time. Like, you like a celebrity. You came in one of our side spaces. I'm like, that's Herb. It's like Drake that came in. That Herb?
Yeah,
Like what? You talking about the Cy Young? Like
Bruh,
what?
man, look. Yeah, I think I've been getting that a lot lately, man, because I mean, it's funny because HBCU basketball, um, for me, and I was saying this on the Golden Boot yesterday. Basketball for me, I grew up around basketball. I'm a native Washingtonian. I grew up, when John Thompson was at Georgetown and Len Bias was, at Maryland, and I grew up in that era where basketball in the DC metro area was just all over the place. I played a little bit when I was in high school, walked on at state, um, and I just grew up around it. So talking about basketball, particularly in HBCU spaces, has always kind of been a fun thing for me to do because it deserves to be talked about, and there's a lot of history there. So
oh yeah,
um, it's kind of it's just natural for me to pick this up a little bit later on, you know, in life and actually do something a little bit more tangible with it, so people can just understand what that history is. Um, in this day and age, I'm happy to be able to do it because the medium is there to get that message out a lot. And as you could probably see in the background, I'm still like watching basketball.
oh yeah,
So, it's championship week this week, so I'm watching a whole bunch of other tournaments. And outside of HBCU spaces, I'm a basketball contributor for the Boston Brackets platform for Fansided. So, um, I'm commenting on everybody from the SWAC, the MEAC, the OVC. I've covered the University of Maryland and some Big Ten ball. So it's yeah, my boy told me I was like the Headleys. I had like 16 jobs on the podcast.
oh
So it's
yeah,
kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like that. So
man, man. But we gonna go ahead and get this started right now. So last week I had a show and I put on the show. The culture is not for sale. I just told them please stop. Everybody tuned into that show, and I normally don't too much do afternoon shows, only because it's usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's my off days from work, and so I try to be at home and try to rest and sleep in all day and stuff like that. But when I seen that what was going on, what was said last week, I had to get on. I had to jump on. I had to make sure let people know that this the HBCU culture is not for sale. You can't duplicate this. You can't replicate this. You can't do too much of anything with this. It is what it is. People always said that he is a cultural icon. Yes, he's a cultural icon because of the fact that he 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 was able to blend in hip hop culture into football in the NFL in college, and you see it happen now. You see it was like what has transpired now with how your league now is 75% black, and hip hop culture kind of runs the league now. But waking up this morning and seeing that he was going to be on the Pivot podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts to watch. Don't get me wrong. Not saying anything bad about those boys, those dudes over there. I like Freddie T, I like Channing, and I like Brian Clark. But I wanted to hear those tough questions that nobody nobody thought about asking Coach Prime specifically. But when I looked at it and I started listening to it and I looked at it, I was like, okay, man, look, understandably so. You gave us as Jackson State a big shout out because of the fact we were the only ones that gave you your first, we gave you your first chance as being a college coach. But when you start talking about business practices, things like that, please don't just lump all of 107 HBCUs together, because somebody might be doing business one way and they've been doing it for the longest and they are very satisfied with the way that they do business, and then other people might look at it like, well, maybe we need to change up, man. But what do y'all think about what he said on the podcast, on that show in particular?
You want to
I guess,
start,
I guess,
Randall?
yeah, I guess I can kick it off.
Go
So
ahead.
I didn't get the opportunity to watch the whole entire thing, but I started tweeting like about 10 seconds in with how they started the podcast. And the trend with Deion Sanders is that he's not like actually interviewed by folks that'll push back on him, and I think that that's the real problem with me, is that he has built so much favor in the media industry because he was a part of the media industry. So because of that, all these folks are your friend. So I said this before, you're not going to go against your friend. You might say something to your friend in private, like, I don't think that was cool. But if you are a real friend, you're not going to alienate your friend. So Rich Eisen, the Pivot Podcast, Stephen A. Smith, especially someone like Shannon Sharp, they're not going to call him on his mess. And that's the problem, because a lot of the things he was saying in what I heard of, what he was saying on the Pivot Podcast, because I heard the Jackson State parts, because I listened to those parts. They started with that. It needed pushback, because there's certain things that are just simply not true, and he's not telling the whole truth, and he's still on this narrative of, I was the HBCU savior. Folks need to change their mindset. The mindset thing might be sort of true, but dude, you weren't even around long enough to really make the changes that folks are putting on you, nor you were around to change some mindset or even know what the mindset is that HBCU alumni truly has when it comes to culture and HBCU football. So I wasn't a big fan of it, and I got love for Ryan Clark. He did his thing with DeMar Hamlin. That situation happened. He was on ESPN speaking truth to power. I got a lot of love for Ryan Clark, but they were giving him softball questions. He was making home runs, man.
Man, I'll just say this, man. Softball questions are understatement. That he might as well have a wiffle ball tee right there. I'm just gonna say this, man, and I'm gonna put this disclaimer out there. You know, I appreciate what Deion Sanders did in his 2-year tenure at Jackson State. I appreciate the visibility that he brought, to the game of HBCU football and FCS level. Well, and more specifically the SWAC, because I can't say that for the MEAC. The MEAC had his own thing going, and um, you know, all of that is great. Now that that's out of the way, there's some things that I think people need to understand about, this latest latest in a series of interactions and commentary, low key sideways commentary about Jackson State and about HBCUs in general, and some of the tropes that he's kind of engaged in. Um, you know, eh, to me, it's kind of old. It's old, and it also says a lot about um, certain things and certain aspects about that experience that he just didn't get. He didn't absorb while he was there. You know, we go back a couple of weeks. He's sitting in the and I think we talked about this on HBC nightly a while back, about my guy sitting in a conference room and having Colorado's band directors and directorial staff there, like he's the dean of music of the school, and just the optics of it was just like, yo, man, you trying to create something, recreate something there that you don't have control over recreating. You have you already have a football and game day culture there that, I mean, quite frankly, you need to embrace, because that's the job that you took, and that community, expects you to work with what's there. But it just says a lot about, you know, his perceptions about what HBCU footballing is or was, and the fact that the Savior complex or the HBCU football Messiah complex is still going strong says a lot. And it's just like, well, I tried to show you this, I tried to show you that. But, in the real world, you know, when you're doing business with two willing entities, you can't have that kind of mentality. You can't, and you have that mentality, and the other willing business partner catches a whiff of it. You're seeing what's happening. You're gonna get pushback because one party is going to feel really insulted because it's not a one-way street. Just like this isn't, this exchange of experiences and benefits isn't a one-way street between Dion and Jackson State. Um, we can go back through the first, from the first presser. And I think I said this on Twitter earlier. Some of us saw this coming from the first presser after he got the job. You know, where he was saying, well, he was selling a bill of goods about my job is to, God called me here to uplift, black college football and put us on the map. And, he wasn't talking about, building a winning program at Jackson State. He was talking about putting HBCU football like on the map, like, it was in a vacuum for the last 50 years. It's, when you really think about it, it's really nasty work. And there's a reason why he goes on to places like the Pivot and other narrative friendly outlets, because certain outlets are going to flame him point blank. you know and I mean, who we talking about. We were just talking about him. I mean, I don't see Deion Sanders taking a sit down interview with Bomani Jones anytime soon, or anybody of that nature, because quite frankly, there's some really, just tropish type of stuff that he's been engaged in since he left. Whether it's the whole crime in Jackson, and and I feel so much safer in Boulder, in terms of crime, and just all the innuendo type stuff that he's been kind of pushing, and people ain't calling him one. Um, it's a bad look, and this is not a knock on his ability to coach or what he did at Jackson. It's just, it says a lot about um, his value of his time here in terms of how he's handling it.
And
You
I
know,
want to I want to
says a
say that
lot.
I want to say this too, before we move on, because I'm seeing the comments about the interview. One part that really stuck out to me, and one thing I hate when it comes to media, is that when folks can just lie without being checked. And I'm gonna call out one lie that I know is a lie. We said thinking about Travis Hunter. He said. Yeah, I'm gonna call it out because he said, "Oh, well, Travis came with me, and that's happened all the time. Lincoln Riley with USC brought Caleb Williams with him, and no one got mad at that." Yes, they did. They were giving Lincoln Riley death threats. What are you talking about? Like, it's like he can say stuff like that just because he might not know about it, or he might have selective memory because it's Deion Sanders. Well, they got mad about me and Travis Hunter, but they getting mad about Caleb Williams. Yes, they did. What are you talking about? Like, that's a lie.
I can say,
I can tell you that firsthand with Caleb Williams, because he's from the DC metro area, and there's a lot of, Mike Loxley, who's the coach up here, you know, put in a lot of work trying to get him to consider transferring home, and he wouldn't even give him the time of day. And they, DC metro area, on social media outlets, like, man, screw that dude. He wasn't really, he's from Northern Virginia anyway. So it was that type of thing. So yeah, I can dig it. I mean, uh,
but it's funny though. Let me say, but it's funny though if you really think about it, because I talk to a lot of Oklahoma fans. They come into my store when I'm at work, and I talk to Oklahoma fans because I work for Lids. Everybody don't know that I work for Lids. Um, um, I asked them about Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. Uh, they have nothing to say about anything good about Lincoln Riley, except for his offense was explosive. But those people love Caleb Williams in Norman. They love them up in Norman, Oklahoma. Um, and it was kind of the same. Like, it was something that somebody said, well, when you knew Lincoln was getting ready to leave to go to USC, Spencer Rattler saw the writing on the wall. You know, he dipped out to go to South Carolina.
Mhm.
He saw the whole writing on the wall. Like, dude, you didn't believe in me. You benched me for Caleb Williams. Even though Caleb is a damn good quarterback, Spencer is a damn good quarterback too. Don't get me wrong. Spencer could sling that rock, and Caleb could sling that rock too. But I just see another upside with Caleb than what I would see with Spencer. But in a sense, Coach Riley didn't he didn't even hesitate to say to kind of have Spencer's back. He saw the writing on the wall. That's the reason why he did that. He saw everything on the wall. Uh, about the Travis Hunter, I'm looking in the comments, so I'm saying talking about how Travis Hunter left. Um, and Deion said, well, he didn't come to Jackson State for the school. He came for him. And in most cases, most kids, when it comes to recruiting, you come for who's your, what I'm saying, whoever's your coach, whoever you are closest with as far as on the coaching staff. And most of the time, when at Jackson, it was the head coach. Most of those kids came there to play for Prime. They didn't really too much play for the school. They had love for the school. They have affinity for the school, but their their main goal was to play for Prime and try to see if he can get them into the NFL. Another thing that kind of disturbed me, that it disturbed me, was the fact that when he was talking about the single parent household, the quarterback coming from a 2-parent household, the defensive players coming from welfare and food stamps and stuff like that. That triggered me because, like, you got to understand, dude. 65% of us have grown up inside of a household that was ran by a single parent. It could be your mom or your dad. Most of the time it's our mother. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time it's our mothers. Sometimes it might not even be our mothers. Sometimes it could be it
You know,
can be our
grandma, auntie, or uncle, or what have you.
right. And not to say that because we came from a single parent home, we're not going to be able to comprehend and be successful on the outside in the outside world. But that just bothered me right there. It
Ma-
bothered me to the point where it's like, you know what? That's what the reason why I made the show last week, and I was like, nah, you can't say what you just said, and then you folks get on your ass, and you want to try to clear it up. No, just be real with what you said. Just
y-
be honest. Be real with what you said. You said it. People got
Yeah,
respect.
yeah, and I'll go one further, man. You know, him saying that, coming from where he came from at Jackson State and representing the HBCUs says a lot because one, anybody that's attended an HBCU, particularly HBCUs where, admissions, at certain schools, the state schools where the admissions, policies are a little bit more liberal when it comes to who can get in and who can attend a school and get an education. You got kids that are coming from all sorts of backgrounds. You got kids that, are coming from those single parent homes you know, that are taking out loans, because of to have that opportunity to pursue an education. And, your student athletes are part of that population. So it bothers me, you know, to hear tropes like that. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is a lot of times, since he's left, he's engaged in a lot of the stereotypical stuff that other folks engage in, as it relates to, black folks in general and HBCUs. And it bothers me a lot because I would think that him being on campus for 2 years and being immersed in one of the more rich HBCU, environment there is that we have at Jackson State. Um, you would have absorbed it. You would have been a little bit more, less tone deaf,
Right.
to a lot of that stuff. And um, I mean, my guy was talking about people breaking into locker rooms and stealing his gold chains and all this other crap. It's like, look, man, I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of that. A lot of that work is nasty work. It really is, in terms of, just forwarding those types of visual narratives and stereotypes about, our schools and institutions. And it's a sad thing. Now we're not even going to get into the football component of this yet, because we were talking about this offline,
Right.
me and Randall. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna say flat out, you know, this this HBCU football savior slash messiah complex is going to evaporate like the wind when that first losing streak hit.
Yep.
I'll say
And
this. I'll say this though, like because it's hard for me to really double down on predictions because I know that there's variables that can change what happens. And I think that we're going to go down two paths. I think what Herb is saying, he was telling me, is right, that when he loses to possibly TCU or USC or Utah, like it's going to be he was just good at the HBCU level. But there is another side that very well could happen, because Shedeur Sanders is a really good quarterback. I'm not gonna lie. He's a really good quarterback. He has some room to grow, but he could have grown, hit his peak in his junior year. He's in Colorado and he does really well. And then like he loses to some of the contenders. He loses to a USC. Maybe TCU is so upset they got embarrassed by Georgia. And then they're like, we're going to take it out on Deion Sanders. They beat him up, but he wins more games than one. Now it's like, see, Deion Sanders is the savior after all. And now it's going to be like, see, HBCU folks. So it could go some different ways, honestly.
well,
But
go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
the way it's going to be spun though is let him win at least 6 games. All you need in FBS is all you need is 6 games to win and go to a bowl game. That to me, I mean, coming off of a 1-11 season, that's a big improvement. Even if you can win 5 games, it's still a big improvement because it's 4 more than what you won the previous year. But what I'm gonna say is, that first game, of course, is TCU. I mean, I live in the Dallas area. Fort Worth ain't that far, probably about 25 minutes from my house. That game is going to be sold out. And from what I'm hearing, it is going to be sold out. Because all eyes, in reality, that weekend, all eyes are going to be on him. That's going to be the biggest ticket right there, because you're starting your season off against the national runner-up in college football. You get what I'm saying? So you starting this season off. Now, but like I said, he gets into that gauntlet after you finish playing Colorado State and you try to beat up on Nebraska. You finish playing Colorado State, which is your in-state rival. You get to that gauntlet of a schedule that you got, that middle part of your schedule, where you got the USCs, you got the UCLA, you got the Oregon, you got the Oregon State. We won't say too much about Stanford because Stanford is still trying to come back. But then you double down, you go all the way through. You got Washington State, and then you end your season with Utah, where Utah spanked you by 42. That is a tough, hard schedule to try to operate with. And plus, people are trying to see if they can try to prove you wrong.
That's true. And
Yeah.
but what I'll say is that, like, with Jackson State and him being at an HBCU, and I've said this before, and a lot of people have said this, is Deion Sanders' superpower when he was at Jackson State is his ability to recruit players that might not to say they would not have, but they might not have chosen a FCS HBCU. They might have gone to a Power 5 institution, maybe another institution. So he was able to get Travis Hunter. He was able to get his son Shador, who was a high-ranked recruit. He was able to get some other guys that were some ballers that might have gone to another school that's not in HBCU. But in Colorado, yes, Deion Sanders is a good recruiter, and he uses his charisma, his swagger, his Hall of Fame NFL background, and also Black culture still to try to get recruits. But at the same time, there are other folks that can recruit too. And we're at a point in sports, and Herb can tell you in basketball, that there is a dearth of talent everywhere. So in football, there's a bunch of offensive and defensive talent. In basketball, there's a bunch of offensive and defensive talent. So it's a bunch of talented folks all around. The key to it is being able to coach and put a scheme and culture in place that can lead you to wins. Because if we're talking about talent, Caleb Williams just won the Heisman Trophy. Why did he not why did he not get to that championship 4? He lost to Utah. You know what I'm saying? And Utah didn't really pop out at you. They didn't have any names that popped out like Caleb Williams did to me. So like he has to coach and put together a team that can win, and it can't be Shador is the best quarterback. He might be, or hey, Travis Hunter is the best wide receiver DB. He might be, but the whole entire team, like you said, like Amber said, it's not a talent gap anymore. Yep. So you have to actually coach and build a culture that's conducive to winning, and that's really my question. And this media tour he's doing is telling me you going in thinking that it's gonna be sweet because you Deion Sanders. Man, TCU won't show you ain't sweet.
Yeah, let me tell you this, man. And like I said, I think I mentioned this prior to coming on the podcast. Deion Sanders is not going to be able to out recruit and out talent his way in the Pac-12. Point blank. Not like he did at FCS. Yes, he can recruit, he can attract talent, but guess what? So can Chip Kelly. So can the cat at Oregon. So can the cat at Utah. The cat at Utah don't even have to leave state to do that. So can the cat at Washington. And so on and so forth. And the big thing is that, we're not even talking about, talent at the skill positions, because you can find that pretty much everywhere. We're talking about line talent. We're talking about, being able to control both sides of the ball. And I got to say this, in terms of analyzing what he did in the SWAC for those 2 years, he was able to do what he was able to do in the SWAC because one, that 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 dearth in talent between them, Florida A&M, and then everybody else in the conference on certain sides of the ball kind of trumped everything, particularly on defense. But and we kind of saw this. We got to the Celebration Bowl in terms of what happens when one of those squads get popped in the mouth. First time with South Carolina State. Second time, and we saw this from second time with North Carolina Central from the first snap.
Yep.
They couldn't stop them, and we could tell that was going to be an issue for them defensively because of what they run and how they run. And it's like defensively for example, they really concentrated on just getting upfield and getting to the quarterback as fast as possible,
right,
and taking away and making you one dimensional. We talked about this on HBCU Nightly, a couple of times during after that SWAC championship game, and after my boy actually had to be forced to make the quarterback replacement. For Southern. Yeah, talking about, my boy Ascot Dooley. He had to make the quarterback replacement. He was forced to. And we saw the whole dynamic of that game change because of how he was then able to attack that defense and use that aggression against them. Deion's not going to be able to do that. He's not going to be able to do that in the Pac-12. The lines he's going to be playing against, and I'm not saying that to say that the Pac-12 is some world beater conference at the Power 5 level. They're not. But that's just the difference in line talent from FCS to Power 5. full fledged D1 at the Power Five level, and you're going to see that first game. If he hasn't recruited, if and like I said, we seen a whole lot of stuff about feedback about what he did at HBCUs and the recruiting he did. I'm gonna tell you, if he hasn't shored up that line, because Colorado's line last year was horrible,
Oh, it was trash.
horrible,
It was trash.
trash. It was dumpster juice. And if he didn't shore that up, I don't care how many skill position players he brings in. And if Shadur Sanders is on his ass like every 5 seconds, they're not going to win games. Not in that conference.
Now, yeah,
So
your quarterback got to be upright. You got to be able to run the ball too, because that's another thing that he didn't um, from year one to year two. So in year one, he was at Jackson. He couldn't run the ball to save his life because the line was so terrible. Your running back, your starting running back, only averaged like 3.4, 3.5 yards a game, and the highest total as throughout the year was like, I think it was like a 500 something, like a little bit over 500 yards. Year two, he went in, somewhat, you think he somewhat replaced the offensive line with a much better offensive line as far as being able to run block, because you got a bell cow at a running back in Savion Wilkerson. But in certain games, we always talked about this. That Alabama State game, he could not. I repeat, uh, he could not get off because of the fact that they kept blitzing him the whole time. Move him off the spots, move him off his spots, kept blitzing him. Uh, and also, if it wasn't for the defense, it wasn't for Aubrey Miller knocking out D Davis, the
yeah,
whole dynamic of the game changes.
yeah, dude. And like I said, I want to, we're talking about this. I want to talk strictly football in regards to um, Coach Sanders, because we already know what the deal is in terms of what he's doing media wise. We get all that. We're me personally, I'm more interested in seeing just exactly how you know this tenure at Jackson State for him and the success he had at FCS is going to translate. Meaning, what he's done at the FCS level, will that work? You know,
Right.
at a P5 school. And I think the one thing I can say about him, I'm not going to say he's a great X's and O's coach. He ain't. You know, he had an awesome staff around him. Dennis Thurman and those guys. But I think the big thing that he's going to realize now that he's at a P5 program, is that he can't just delegate everything. He's going to have to coach.
Yeah.
He's going to have to develop game plans. He's going to have to um, be able to step in and call plays when needed. And uh, to be quite honest with you, to me, the jury's still out on that, because when it came really right down to it, and he was asked to do that, to make adjustments, those two Celebration Bowl losses are front and center in my mind. You know, particularly that first one. That first one, it was just like, okay, Buddy Pugh was like, all right, and we're gonna put the brakes on this. We're gonna smack him in the mouth and see if he makes an adjustment, and he didn't. You know, the entire game offensively. Um, same thing defensively. He started to blitz, and Doc is absolutely right. With that, um, with the Alabama State game, the Alcorn game, they really went after him. Tennessee State went after him during that game, and they really beat him up a lot. You know, um, in all three of those instances, it was what we couldn't do offensively, that really saved him from having uh, any sort of experiencing that type of loss. Uh, I Yeah, man, I just don't. I'm interested in seeing how this plays out, because like I said earlier, don't let him have Don't let him pick up where the last season left off, for Colorado in terms of performance and execution. He opens up that season losing 3 or 4 games. You're going to see a lot of the same voices that are talking about, X, Y, and Z turn the microscope on him, and it's not going to be pretty.
Right.
And then we're going to really see what kind of, what cachet that media personality and that media, you know, uh, acumen is going to earn him in terms of time.
Oh yeah.
Because that's how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And I think in talking about the football side for Deion Sanders, just one thing just really drilling in on watching Jackson State is once again, he relied on the talent of Shador. He relied on the talent that he had on the offensive side of the ball and even the defensive side of the ball because they did have the number one ranked defense in FCS. Like he relied on that, but also you have to look at the fact that a lot of the HBCUs that he played, they were really run first teams. They were run first teams, but and then also
efficient.
Yeah, and they like, I won't go that far. you said that. I'm not gonna go that far. But like they ran the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like they ran the ball, and I think that's how like Jackson State last season especially was really able, to really rack up great defensive numbers, and they had great players. But the thing with Deion Sanders that always puzzled me, and why I said that. From the jump, what I saw in Celebration Bowl is that he can't coach, and folks trying to get in my head is that he is a great culture setter. I think Deion Sanders knows how to build a good culture. He's a great motivator. He's a great talker. He's great in instilling in the players that's on his team the mission and the weight of the mission. But when it comes to X's and O's, I think that there's a difference in delineation between knowing football and actually knowing how to coach football. Because we know Deion Sanders knows football. He's a Hall of Famer, especially knows the defensive side of the ball. He can see certain things, but it's one thing to see things. It's another thing to know how to adjust in a coaching manner to say, hey, this is what we're going to do to shore up what I see. Or this is what we need. This is the player that we need to come in to make this happen. And I think that was the problem with the Deion Sanders experiment. But in this experiment, the experience, because when you look at it, yeah, he was successful. He didn't lose a game in the SWAC, but look at the games that he did lose. Look at the games that he almost lost. And you saw the weakness. And I personally believe, I knew he was going to leave, but I think he left too soon. I don't think he's ready for FBS. I don't think he's ready for Pac-12. He can prove me wrong. I've been proven wrong before, but I don't think he's ready because they're treating him. This is one thing I noticed in the interview too. They're asking him these questions about recruiting. They're asking him these questions about being a coach like he's Nick Saban. This man started coaching at Jackson State. He got the job in September 2020, coached his first game in February 2021 on ESPN Plus against Edward Waters. You know what I'm saying? So like they acting like he's Eddie G. Robinson. So how do you recruit? Like, what is your recruitment philosophy? His recruitment philosophy. What is his coaching philosophy? Like, what is Deion Sanders' plan? When he goes out there, what is the plan? Because to me, it seems like he writes on his clipboard, let Shador throw the ball. Let Shador figure it out. That's what it seems like to me. Because what philosophy? Because you have to be at a place for a little bit to develop some level of a philosophy. So I feel as if a lot of folks are really putting Deion on this pedestal that he doesn't deserve, but they think he deserves it because he's Deion Sanders, the Hall of Famer.
Man, let me respond to this dude that just posted up here, man. Let me tell you something, champ.
Go ahead.
Nobody wants this dude to fail. In fact, I think I can speak for everybody up here on this panel that would eat a lot of crow and be happy to do it if he went 10 or 11-0 and went to a bowl game and went to a championship game next year. Because because the underlying thing about that is that he's doing what he's supposed to do as a coach, and he's doing right by that community. Don't be mad because we're calling this dude out to the carpet for stuff that he does. Don't let your fandom blind you and make you non-objective to folks that have a different perspective. And I think people. I mean, what gets me, and I'm gonna go on a little rant here because I know I got 4 minutes before I roll out,
Right.
and I want people to listen to me. You know, just hear what I got to say and listen really clear. You know, we open the entire HBCU football community opened their arms wide for Deion Sanders when he decided to join our ranks and make our experiences uh, do his best to add to the legacy that are our experiences. You know, let me if you're not connected to it, that's great, but I mean, what kind of gets me with some of these folks is that they act like HBCU football was just popped out of nowhere when Deion Sanders decided to take the job at Jackson State. HBCU football has been around since the turn of the damn century.
Correct.
HBCU football, you know, eh, eh, ain't Deion Sanders. I heard some on the pivot today. Just kind of comparing him to what Eddie Robinson did at Grambling, and I was just like, man, just shut up. You know what I'm saying?
Please.
Yeah, please. This dude did 2 years at Jackson State, did an awesome job. Nobody's taking it, anything away from him. But he is. I've heard people say that he's HBCU culture, and it's the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. It's quite literally, you know, it's a case study why we gatekeep the way we do,
Right.
because you have people that take their fandom for one person or a celeb or what have you, and uh, you know it automatically turns their brain off from actually learning about what the culture is, what the culture is about, why we have the culture, why we have the integration between our fans and the sport that we do. It's crazy stuff. It's like no, we don't want Prime to lose, but if he does if he does lose, particularly why he's kind of taking the HBCU Messiah Complex media tour that he's taking, he's gonna get the heat back.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
I'm a,
And your fandom is not going to save him from that heat.
nah. So I'm a.
They'll
I'm a.
defend him though.
Hmm.
They'll defend him. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
think that they're gonna put themselves in the line of fire to make sure, because the talking point is going to be it is his first season, give him a chance. That's gonna be the talking point. You know what I mean? So I think that the fan, because y'all have to understand this. I know y'all understand it, but I need everybody to understand this. Deion Sanders is a celebrity. So when it comes to celebrities, there's a different playbook. If I were to start coaching at Colorado and I win 5 games the first season, and then I win 5 games the next season, Randall Barnes has been fired. Like ESPN has reported. Like, but if it's Deion Sanders, they might give him like, hey, you know what? He got to get started. He built his team up. Shador just left. He got drafted. Like, so he's gonna be bound to different standards because he's a celebrity. So I don't think he's gonna be bound to those same standards, because people are still gonna defend him, and he has his defenders in the media that are his friends. So they're not gonna go. All of them are not gonna be real with him. I think Shannon Sharp might. I don't know, but the
He,
other ones, I don't think they will.
he ain't gonna be real with him. I'm.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And I mean, and I'll say this too, man. I'm an Alabama State guy. You know, I'm one of the first ones to say E. Rob was right during the whole
Yeah.
handshake thing. So I don't, I think Jackson State is going to be just fine without him.
Oh yeah.
The guy that's in the slot now, TC Teller's a quality dude, and all rivalry aside, they're not losing a whole lot, and I think that dude has a really good chance to step in and to really put his own stamp on that program and not have to worry about um, having people talk about, well, what are you going to do now that Dion's gone? And see, there's another thing too, is that suppose TC Taylor comes out and has a blockbuster season, you're still going to hear the narrative. Well, Dion laid the groundwork for that. It's really Dion's success and not his. You're going to hear that,
yeah, yeah.
And,
which is really stupid.
Hold on. Let me.
and
Let me. Let me
okay, I'm
answer.
sorry.
So the way I'm looking at it. Thank you Thank you for posting the question, Mr. Curry, and thank you for the views because it helps out the channel. But here's my thing about this. All this would not be happening if he would his keep Jackson State and HBCU's name out of his mouth. That's the reason why we have so much pushback against this guy because he keeps bringing us forward in the little spats that he's having. It's more like and it's all about what we say. It's I said this. It's a narcissist complex. It's a narcissistic complex that he has. Like I got to be the it's all about me. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a damn about nobody else. It's all about me. Dude, this is all I'm saying. Like my guy Herb said, if TC coached the game, if he coached this season, if we have a 10, 11 win season this year with a Celebration Bowl win, you can't say well he laid the groundwork because if he laid the groundwork, he would still be here. He would still be here. He would not have went to snowier and whiter pastures of Siberia, America, and he would still be.
My guy said Siberia, America, boy.
Iberia.
Uh, so so that's the thing I'm saying. Like is and you can't say well TC didn't. It's all about Prime. No, it was Prime that did that. No, TC went out there. Him and Coach O went out there and recruited their ass off. Got the kids that was in the portal that was talking about going somewhere else after Coach Prime left, and got them to change their mind to come back to the university so they could run one more time with TC. And most of the kids that I talk to, that come on my platform and I talk to them, they love TC. They feel like TC is the one that's going to take them to the promised land. And that's the thing. Don't stop trying to discredit Coach Taylor for something that he had nothing to do. Y'all realize TC was a wide receivers coach slash offensive coordinator for a brief time last year and the year before. Okay, he he ain't got nothing to do about this. He was named the head coach of Jackson State. He was named the 22nd head coach of Jackson State a couple months ago. He out there, he recruiting, he doing what he doing. He's silent about what he's silent about what he's doing, which is a great thing for him and a great thing for our institution because we ain't got to put everything out, on Front Street like that. We don't have to do all that. So, uh, but like I said, thank you for the view and thank you for the question. Now, there's another question that came up here. Is from my guy, the one. Um, he asked, and like he said, I don't really know nobody discuss this because what Prime was saying, well, it's an elevation for my assistant coaches that look like us, right? But your offensive and defensive coordinators are white, and the issue is that the having Coach Thurman as a defensive coordinator and Barcelona as your offensive coordinator ain't gonna it's not gonna get you nowhere here in Colorado. You probably gonna be middle of the pack or at the bottom of the Pac-12. But I want somebody to answer that question because like it just boggles my mind sometimes, man.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. I think um, I wouldn't necessarily read too much into that part in terms of his coordinators and stuff, and I think that has a lot more to do with Sanders' comfort level with some of these cats in those positions, as opposed to there being any specific agenda in terms of selecting an offensive or a defensive coordinator that's a specific ethnicity or race or what have you. I think that has a lot more to do with his comfort level in terms of um, what he wants to do schematically,
Right.
and you know, I mean, just his relationships and connections with people that I think can get him to that point. I don't think that um, one thing I can say he's been consistent about is kind of reaching back and offering people, taking people with him. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't think that part of it I don't think that's part of the equation. Um, like I said, it's still going to be interesting though, because if those guys don't do the job, I mean, you're going to hear it, and it's not going to be from HBCU folks. It's going to be folks, it's going to be from the folks in Boulder, and them folks have been notoriously short leashed with head coaches.
It really,
So
and if you
yeah,
really think about it, look at it where Mel Tucker was on there for 1 year, and he left to go to Michigan State and got a fat bag, a fat,
yeah,
and ain't looked back since.
yeah,
Like he's not looked back since. He to me he read most of the time you read the writing on the wall. Somebody said something about Rick George, who is the AD for Colorado, and it was on funny. It was on Twitter, like that's prime God, like because
Yeah.
you playing that Randall.
He mentions Rick George so much. He just two people entities that he mentions. Well, three. He mentions Jackson State, God, and Rick George all the time. Like Rick George didn't even have the money to bring him in to start off. It's sort of funny. It's like because he on the video he says, "Well, we don't got the money, but I know I'm gonna have the money." And it's like for real, like he loves Rick George. The fact he said he was at a restaurant with his coach, he told the coach, "It's time." And I called and I put the phone out. And what I thought he was going to say when he said that, I thought he was going to say, I went and called God. And God told me. That's what I thought he was going to say. I was like, who he pulled the phone out to call, Deion? He went to call Rick and said, I'm coming. Because I honestly thought that's where he was going. Because he always like, well, God called me collect. Because he said, like, if God called me collect to come to Jackson State, do you think he called me collect if he could leave? First time, like, call collect. He don't got a cell phone. Like what the world? Like who collects? Like collect? Is he in jail? Got jail in this example?
man,
Like call collect? Like
man,
it's
that's so
certain stuff
funny
just
right
don't
there.
make sense. Certain stuff that
For
don't
real,
make sense to
man.
me.
I'm playing
Yeah.
got rolled out, y'all. So man, I thank you for coming on to the show, man. I'm gonna be on there for HBCU nightly as always, bro, on Wednesday night,
Yes, sir. And I got a feeling that we're really going to do a deep dive into this whole thing, man, and that's going to be hilarious. So,
Yeah.
uh,
man.
thank you, man. Thank you, guys. Parental duty calls because I already got the bat phone. So brother gonna have to go pick the girl up. So gotta roll.
I heard,
But yeah,
man.
man, you really think about it, like, uh, if you really think about it, like, man, he, it was funny because if you really think about it, he praised when he was at Jackson, he praised the hell out of Ashley Robinson, which Ashley is, and still is a great athletic director in these streets, but uh, ain't no comparison, y'all. Ain't no comparison between Rick George and Ashley Robinson. Only thing that you can compare is that Rick George has a much bigger budget than Ashley does. But Ashley can do more with less. And that's the
But
feeling that's the thing that we have always had. We can do more with less.
But one thing when Deion talks about Rick George, like when he talked about Ashley, he was like, "Yeah, this my AD XYZ." But when he talks about Rick George, his eyes light up. I'm telling you, it's like a different feeling when Deion Sanders talks about Rick George. Like it's like Rick George gave me this opportunity. He put me in FBS. Like it's just a different feeling. It's like he can't really talk about Colorado like that. He talks about Jackson State all the time. But one person he's going to talk about is Rick George. And we're not even at the point where Rick George, can really do anything like how Ashley did to make that big impact. You know what I'm saying? Because we're not in the point where it's the summer and the fall where we're seeing, the true gains of what Rick George is doing. Because he really just got there. Outside of like I said, the Candy store with the Nike and all the different stuff, we're not really seeing Rick George, but we've seen what Ashley Robinson has done, and we've seen his track record. And then to be honest, I wonder, and this is just me speculating, I'm just talking here, but with Rick, if he didn't hire Deion Sanders, was Rick George about to get fired? Because how long has he been AD? I've not done my research on Rick George. How long has Rick George AD? Because Rick George as AD has not been that successful if you look at the record, if you want to be real.
Right.
Because he might have been ready to be fired if Deion Sanders hadn't come. And if the Deion Sanders experiment doesn't work, what's going to happen to Rick George?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Oh man, I'm laughing over here, y'all. Somebody is trying to impersonate me on Twitter right now and spread all misinformation and stuff. So yeah, I gotta, I ain't saying I gotta get off, but I'm playing I'm gonna bust somebody's head open in a minute. So
man, you a celebrity too? You got impersonators?
Man, somebody gotta impersonate me, bro. I don't know what's up, bro. But we got some haters up in here.
What the world?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, the one thing I want to kind of touch base on is the fact about. I want to go back to what he was talking about, the 2-parent household and everything, y'all. So this, like I said, this been my this been like a thorn in my ass for like the last couple of weeks when he said this. You have to understand, sir, your son was your kid, your three younger kids, right? Went through a nasty divorce where you put their mother through so much hell. The house in Prosper that you had, which is Prosper, Texas, which is north of here of Dallas, probably about 20 minutes from here. You divided the house in half. Pilar couldn't go on one side, had one side of the house, you had the other. But you won the case where all your kids came with you. Okay? I have I have an irritation. Like it just irritates my ass when when that narrative came out. But you put your youngest son through so much hell. You get what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
like when kids remember everything when they look. Like when they're young, they remember everything. My 8-year-old remembers everything that I do, and she will call me out on it. And what can I do? I just have to look at her like, "Yep, Daddy did that. I'm sorry."
yeah.
but to say that you want your quarterback to come from a 2-parent household with all this, that, and the third, and then you want your defensive players to come from food stamps and welfare and everything from a single parent home. It just irritates me. It just grinds me. And as a parent, if I have a child that is an athlete that is going to be recruited by you, I'm going to give you those receipts. It's like what they say in wrestling. They have receipts, and they're going to give you those receipts. And when they show you these receipts, that's going to kill. That's going to diminish somewhat of what you trying to do as far as recruiting. Because nowadays we live in a world of social media. I'm 43 years old. When I was at Jackson State, we didn't have too much. We didn't have social media like that. We had Black Planet College Club, and you had to get on the computer to actually talk to all your friends and stuff. So, but now it's to the fact now it's you got social media, and social media is there. Once you put it out there, it's there, and everybody can get it, and everybody can see it. So that's the thing about it is you're gonna run into one of those mamas that said, "Well, I my son can't play for you because he's a quarterback, but he's a single parent. I'm a single parent. He ain't gonna play for you. I'm gonna show him people his tape and who wants to appreciate my, you know what I'm saying, appreciate my kid, my son. Yeah, man. That shit
Yeah.
irritated me. Like it irritated to the point. Like when you become a parent, bro. I don't know if you're a parent or not,
I'm
but
not.
you become a parent and you start hearing stuff like that. That's like it's like Pavlov's dog. You hear stuff like that, your ears go up.
Yeah,
And when
and
yeah, go ahead.
I mean to cut you off, but like, I try my absolute best to not talk about Deion Sanders because when I started HBCU Pulse Radio, I started doing on Sirius XM on January the 6th. It was before Ed Reed was hired because I probably would have did my first show about him being hired.
Yeah.
Again, and my birthday was on Christmas, so before I shut it down for Christmas, I did a commentary about the whole entire Deion Sanders experience, and that was my last segment. I call it Randall's Thoughts on my radio show. And I said that it was definitively my last thing I was going to say about Deion Sanders, because I just felt as if there's nothing more that I can say or lend to this conversation because I'm confident in my voice. I'm confident in my platform. I know I'm intelligent. I try to speak intelligently and be mindful in what I say. But at the end of the day, I'm not Bomani. What is Bomani to me? Bomani works for ESPN. Bomani has been a journalist and personality for years. Bomani has a platform to directly look eye to eye with Deion Sanders and call him out. I saw Deion Sanders like one of HBC posters post on Instagram one time, but Deion don't know me, so I can say what I say, but what I'm saying is just, people saying amen that agree with me and folks that disagree with me calling out my validity saying, oh, you can't talk, so I decided not to talk about Deion Sanders. But last week, before the Pivot podcast came out, I really wanted to speak about it about this situation because Deion called upon some nasty stereotypes. Because when you look at the players that play college football and you see the players that star in college football, oftentimes, be honest, they're predominantly black. Now, granted, there are other races of folks that are in college football, that are in the NFL, but in the college football world, these players are predominantly black. So, and look at who you recruited. You're talking about predominantly black players. So we can't do that. Oh, well, you put race in it. Well, who is he recruiting to play at Colorado? You saw it was a predominance of young black men. So you're segregating them based on that and stereotyping them based on where they came from. And a lot of people said this. Like the divorce, living in a single parent household is not their fault. Right. And who's to say that someone living in a two-parent household is in a stable environment? And the hypocrisy, and I'll say this, I know we all have said this, the hypocrisy of Shedeur Sanders basically living in a single parent household, but he's your starting quarterback. And I started to think two things last week. Number one, Deion Sanders has no forethought to what he says. And I don't think he ever has had it, but he's not had the position now he can be truly called on it, number one. But number two, outside of maybe DeAndrea, who seems like, she rides for her dad, and that's typical. I think that Shedeur, and I don't know for a fact, but I think maybe Shedeur, definitely Shiloh, I feel like, and maybe even Deion Sanders Jr., they like, man, come on, Dad. Like, come on, Dad. Like, really? I honestly feel like sometimes they like Dad, for real. Because you can do that to your parents. Like once you grow up and you have your own experiences and you form your own opinion, sometimes you're like, come on, Mom, really? Come on, Dad, really? And because I haven't heard a lot from Shedeur. I haven't heard a lot from Shiloh. Of course, we see Deion Sanders Jr. all the time. But I honestly think that they're like, Dad, come on, man. But At the same time, Deion Sanders is going to do what he wants to do because he can do whatever he wants to do, it seems like, because he's a celebrity and he has an amenable level of privilege that we are not given. And that's just how it is when it comes to celebrity culture, especially Black celebrity culture. He has access to a level of privilege that we don't have access to. So he can mess up. He can say erroneous things. He can put out misinformation, and he's going to get defense for it. Meanwhile, you and I on our shows, we can't do that because, like, let me say something about Jackson State on Twitter that's wrong. I'm getting roasted. You know what I'm saying? But he can because he's a celebrity. You know what I mean?
You don't do that. It's a lot of I have a lot of Jackson State folks on in the chat right now. They will come for your head if you speak ill will of the school on 1400 J.R. Lynch Street. But here's another thing that irritated me also, and we talked about this too, was the simple fact that nobody fact checked this man about what had happened with what DeAndrea said on the issues about crime on the campus of the school. Now that irritated a lot of folks, like a lot of folks, where it was like, look, you were here for 2.5 years. Of course, you're gonna have your, people tell me they're gonna in Jackson, it's all about car break-ins and stuff like that. You're gonna have your typical car break-in and stuff. It's all typical, but for your own child to your daughter, for her to go on another podcast with, I don't know what the dude looked like. He looked like his head looked like Finding Nemo, but his brain was at the level of a shrimp. But the thing about it is, she went on that show to spew like so much misinformation about what was going on campus that everybody on this chat, mostly everybody on this chat, had the serious pushback. Like, ma'am, you don't know what you're talking, because the simple fact that you only came to Jackson when it came down to when we had home football games. You took our black money when you was hosting those parties. You didn't have no issue when you was on campus with your dad and your brothers and your sister. Yes, your sister. And you didn't see no murders every other month or so because you was only there for a certain amount of time to host parties. You take money, host parties. You have no real fight in this. Like, you're the least one of the Sanders. And this is so funny. Like, I tell people, my aunt taught Deion at Cedar Hill High School. That's my alma mater in high school, Cedar Hill, here in Texas. She taught her and basically said, look, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're a trust fund baby. You're a trust fund baby. Your dad took you to the hood when it was convenient because he had his youth football in Oak Cliff, in South Dallas, in Pleasant Grove, had her around those areas right there of Dallas, the southern section of Dallas. You could say somewhere in the north, in the northern section, Forest and Adelia, Delia and Skillman, those places right there. And you got to experience a little bit of what the hood is, but remember, y'all stay in a big ass house, a big ass mansion outside of the city. You don't know what goes on inside of the city until you go ride with your dad to said places for the youth football, and then you go to a public school. Cedar Hill is a public high school, and you got your education there, but you still a trust fund baby. Everybody in your family, even your brothers are trust fund babies until they get on their own, when they get drafted to a team and they make their own money and they don't have to rely on their father. But you have to rely on your father. Deion Jr., he somewhat relies on his dad, but he's his own man. Shalimar definitely got to rely on her dad. So, um, to me, I I I I, I just say you're a trust fund baby, and you spill all that misinformation about the school or what's going on in the school when you didn't have a pot to piss in about the school only because your brothers played there. Your dad was the head coach. That irritated me, and somebody should have sat her down, and somebody should have sat him down and said, "Hey, what you're doing right now is a disservice to your legacy at Jackson State. You're tearing down your own legacy to try to boost up what you're doing now in Colorado. You don't even really talk about Colorado like that, but you'd love to talk about Jackson State and HBCU. It's the first thing that come out of your mouth. You love to talk about that. But man, it just irritated me. But I remember when they was talking about that, I'm like, man, we have to fact check this. Yeah. And that's why we gatekeep this so hard.
I was so close because, like I said, I honestly tried my best to not talk about Deion Sanders, but I was so close. You have no idea how close I was to doing an article on HBCUpost.com and a video, like basically outlining how what she's saying is a lie. Like, because it was so easy to discover. Even we was like, I had to stop the police officer. Like, I had to stop the police officer because I couldn't find any police officers. Like, it was so unprovable when it came to crime. It was so unprovable. But I just decided not to, because while talking about Deion in itself is an industry, and I can say it is because I got paid pretty well. In my ascension on YouTube, a lot of it was because of Deion Sanders. We're getting numbers before him, but a lot of the good numbers came from Deion Sanders being at Jackson State and him leaving. I got paid over here. We got some money over at HBC Post because of YouTube. But I just decided, man, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. Because like I don't have the emotional bandwidth to continue to talk about this man. Because I just like to be rational no matter what I say. Like what am I going to say that is truly, especially in this situation, going to change anything that he has going on? And that was what I asked myself when it came to this situation, because people were talking about it as far as with DeAndre, and it was the truth. And one thing I want people to see is there is a power in our voice on social media, especially if we use it the right way to combat misinformation. Because I want you all to notice when you hear Deion Sanders say, I'm not worried about all the talk. Because if these folks are talking, if I let these folks get to me, I'm giving a remote control of my emotions. Right. Why is he still talking about Jackson State? If we stop talking about him, would he still be talking about Jackson State? If there had not been a significant pushback from Jackson State students and alum and HBCU students and alum to what DeAndrea said, would she have apologized? No, because she would have gone unchecked.
It was a half-ass apology.
It was, like, but she apologized because of the pushback.
Right. When you start doing this to your hair, you know you ain't mean that damn apology, man. You start doing this to your hair, my hair ain't that long again right now, but when you start doing this to your hair and you just think, I want to apologize, you wholeheartedly don't mean that shit. I'm sorry to say that, but you wholeheartedly don't mean that. So to me, I'm a be real honest with you. You was just there, just be there. You're the least of the talent. You the talentless Sanders. That's what if anybody got something to say, if he got something to say about it, he can hit me up where I'm at.
He probably DM you. He probably will. Like Jeff, how he did Jeff. You saw the video? How he DM Jeff?
Yeah, he could come on. He could DM. Come on, because I'm with the shit. I am with it.
But that was for me and just the whole entire thing. It's like in my life right now. I'm not saying everything's perfect in my life right now, but my life is very undrama filled. And working in the HBCU media space, and I'll say this publicly, I love working in the HBCU media space, but there's politics often you have to maneuver around, especially when you're on the younger alumni or student side, because I started HBCU Pulse when I was a student at Fort Valley. And I'm now, of course, I'm 26 years old, 4 years out of Fort Valley. So, I'm still in that young alumni place. So in that young alumni place, we're concentrated on Instagram mainly in that young alumni place. And there were a lot of things I had to navigate with student leadership, even after, I graduated from Fort Valley, and different things that caused a lot of drama in my life where honestly HBCU Pulse wasn't even fun to do at a certain point. But after I got that drama out of my life, I got the radio show. I started to do more purposeful work about politics, the history of sports, all these different things. My life became more fulfilled in this space. But when the Deion Sanders and Ed Reed situation happened, it started to really get very, very disturbing for me. And my peace, especially with the Ed Reed situation, my peace started to really get tested because I love this. I love HBCUs. I love what it did for me. I love what it's doing for me now, where it's allowing me to create a career that I wanted in media. So, and I always want it to be purposeful. I didn't want HBCU Pulse to be just an Instagram page or just a Twitter page. I want it to be a popping media company. I wanted my voice to mean something. So when I'm out here, I'm doing these videos and these shows, and you got Ed Reed that's been here for a month. Deion Sanders that was here for 2 years. And they're tearing down everything I feel as if I was fighting to build amongst the students back in 2019 with the radio show, with Twitter, with YouTube. And it's like, you're coming down and knocking all that down and making it seem as if we're just elitist fools and we're crazy. It did not sit right with my spirit, because now I'm like, you're trying me. You know what I mean? So I was like, man, I'm not talking about this more. After everything, I was like, you know what, man, I'm not talking about it anymore. And even when it was good for the money side of things, because, everything, YouTube was looking good. But it's like, man, it's not about that for me. So it's like the DeAndre stuff, the Deion Sanders stuff, all this, I wouldn't be talking about it right now if you didn't ask me to come on, because I value my peace more. And I just don't like how everything that we're fighting for and that we're building, this man's coming in and knocking it down. I just don't like that.
He's knocking it down, but he's also knocking down his own legacy. That's
true.
Football too. Like, you got to understand, he was 27-6 in his 2.5 years at Jackson State. He won 2 SWAC titles, went undefeated in conference in both years, had an undefeated season last season. Only thing is, he didn't get it done when it counted the most, which was the Celebration Bowl. The last thing I said was I appreciated what he did for our school as far as getting us back to our winning ways. Everybody has to remember, we had 7 years of bad luck.
Well, I have a question about it, though. You as a Jackson State alum, and we have Jackson State alum that are here. So when I look at the Rick Comedy years, Rick Comedy coming from Tuskegee, because, Fort Valley, D2, there was success. There's only one season that he had a losing season, 2007 SWAC championship. And of course, you had the valley of about 7 years where it wasn't winning. But I just, because like with Colorado, for example, Colorado didn't have any winning seasons in this millennium for real. Jackson State has had W.C. Gordon. You got Rick Comedy. You have success. You have great quarterback play, like great games, an intense rivalry with Southern in that SWAC championship, and I believe 2013. So like, there's a model of success that Jackson State has had in football. And I'm old enough to remember, because I was in college and I was doing HBCU Pulse. Like, Jackson State, to me, I can only speak for my vantage point. I'm not just saying, because I keep it real. But right. Jackson State, in my vantage point, didn't seem like, oh, we gonna beat Jackson State. It is what it is. Because there were matchups in which at that time, Jackson State was competing with the better schools in the SWAC. Just right. From my vantage point. You know what I mean? Yeah,
So
and I'm not sure. I went to Fort Valley, but I'm just saying, like, I just don't because Deion Sanders did bring winning and bring success. He brought attention. He did some good
but
things, and I'm not gonna doubt that. But Jackson State had a culture of winning, and in sports, there's gonna be some times when you're down, and then you get the right person, and then you don't come back up. You know?
right, and this is what I appreciate what Amber. She's one of my moderators.
Mhm.
She said, we should have never got rid of comedy, and the reason why we got rid of comedy is because of the APR. And then we were ran the we Vivian Fuller, who was our AD at the time, she ran it down. Um, don't get me wrong, because uh, Dr. Mason is the one who hired comedy back in '06. Dr. Myers came in 2011, 12, around that time, if I'm not mistaken. People that's in here, y'all can fact check me. Um, he that like she cared about sports, but it wasn't enough if you really think about it. We had 7 years. Remember, we had 7 years of mediocre coaching. Like it was like every year and a half, 2 years, we had a new coach. You know, and people, I would tell people it really started after Coach Hughes got fired at Jackson. We brought in Coach James Bell, which was everybody that's a Jackson State alum, that's a Jackson State fan, would tell you those were the dark days right there. Dark. When this man tried to literally get rid of everything from our past. Like old film, old pictures of Walter Payton, Jackie Slater, all those guys, Lim Barney. Oh, he tried to erase all that. He tried to erase everything on that. And um it just started, the hamster wheel just started turning. Like you go and get comedy from Tuskegee, who built that school into a D2 power. Uh, he had plenty of success at Jackson State. We went to the SWAC championship game, which by by far we should have won that game. And if you don't think we should have won that game, go watch it. Check out Alex Hines on YouTube. He has
That's my guy.
games. Literally, he has all the games of HBCU football and basketball
Mhm.
on his channel. He ain't trying to get monetized for it. He just want to promote it. That's all it is. So go back and watch that game. Then you go to the Harold Jackson era. You go to the um, um, Tony Hughes era, and then you go to the John Hendricks era. And after John Hendricks, because remember John Hendricks came in, he got he was the interim coach. He went 2-1 while his after Coach Hughes got fired because he got fired towards before the end of the season. Uh, bring him back. He gets the full head coaching spot. Right. Bring him back. He goes 4-8. Team was undisciplined. You're talking about a lot of things that was going on with that team. They were undisciplined. They were childish. I mean, they kids, but they was childish. They didn't too much care about what was going on. And of course, Coach TC was on that squad too. Coach TC was, I mean, not squad, but he was on the coaching staff also.
Mhm.
So you have to think about it. Um, so when they let go of Hendricks, they didn't bring him back. They didn't bring him back, and it was supposed to be built for TC to get the job. It was supposed to be built for TC to get the job. Nope. Guess what? Ashley Robinson throws a curveball, brings in Prime because he wants to get us back up on the spot. And the way I looked at it is he used he used Jackson State it's a stepping stone. Because don't get me wrong, it's a stepping stone. Every job you get, every school you go to, whatever you go to, is a stepping stone for something better. just like we doing this platform here on YouTube and everything, is a stepping stone for something much greater. So the way he had to do it, and this is just my logical way of thinking, y'all. The way he had to do it was bring in the talent out of the transfer portal and put a product on the field to say, "Well, I can do this, and we can win, and we can win it at any cost my way." When he did do that, yes, people wanted the track that he did talk to TCU. He said it out of his own mouth. He wanted to talk to TCU. He talked to TCU, but I knew they weren't going to get him that job because of course they was looking for a proven coach. You're taking over. You're trying to get a job and take over for a coach, and Coach Patterson, who's been there for over 20 years. You're talking about a man who single handedly had coach one of almost the Heisman Trophy winner in LaDainian Tomlinson. You're talking about a man who coached a great team that 2011 went to the Rose Bowl, upset Wisconsin team with a J.J. Watt. And of course, you talk about a man who it is all we're gonna go back. Talk about a man who did more with less. Coach Patterson could take, and here in Texas, could take a 1A, 2A high school player that was probably like a defensive end or a defensive tackle and turn him into a running back. Or they could probably turn a running back into a defensive end who gets drafted in the first round and is a damn Pro Bowler in Jerry Hughes. You're talking about a guy that did more for less. Then you started hearing the rumblings about the Colorado, because of the simple fact, if a school is courting you at the beginning of the month and you're only probably like a quarter in your football season, which was the worst kept secret, because he kept giving innuendos like, "Oh, I'm in Denver. I have to fly out to Colorado." Like that, you have to start thinking about that. Dude, just be real with this. Just be real with the fan base, because the fan base pays part of your salary. Just be real with the students, because the students actually they loved you as far as being the head coach and everything, and bringing winning back to the school. Just be real with us. Just be honest with it. But of course, you're not going to be able to do that, because you got to keep it under wraps and try to get all the numbers finalized and stuff. But they didn't even fire the coach until they didn't fire Carl Durrell until October the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about that. And then you got all this stuff. Like I said, when you go up there, didn't like the way that you left out. Like it's like, for all my old heads on here, it's like how Baltimore got the big Mayflower truck and rolled out in the middle of the night, and voila, they ended up in Indianapolis. Down at the Indianapolis coast. I put it in just like that. He rolled out in the middle of the night on the private jet. He had on Jackson State gear. Voila. He got on the Colorado hat. Come on now. Just be real with us. Just be honest with us. That's all we ask for as Jackson State.
And then too, it got reported that he was telling recruits, "Hey, I'm leaving Jackson State," like before he even was able to even let, for what it seemed like, his players know. Because I had no inside information, because I have to say it, because now I'm connected, I'm in the media space. I had no inside information, but I just know how to put two and two together. Yeah. And you look at it that Friday, because like I'm old enough to remember, it was only like 4 months ago. The report came out, because Woj, I found out about it. I'm not gonna lie, I was playing 2K that night. I'm not gonna lie, it was like 12 o'clock. I was playing 2K, and I looked at my phone, and Woj retweeted. I think was it Scheffner? It was either Scheffner or like one of the college folks, and
it was Pete Thamel.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I said Scheffner. Pete Thamel, and Pete Thamel is the one that had put out the tweets in the report that Deion Sanders was closing in on Colorado. But it was also rumors and talk that he was telling recruits, I'm going to Colorado before he even was able to tell his team, because according to the timeline with the cameras and everything like that, he told his team after the SWAC championship, they had an official meeting. And folks were telling me, well, the football players don't have the phones. How they know about it? Come on, man. You're telling me that there are 19 to 22-year-olds that are not amenable to some level of social media or some level of conversation isn't happening. So that whole entire talking point didn't make sense. But the timing was that he was like, yeah, I'm coming down there. He tried to sort of control the narrative, try to make it was going to be after they won this SWAC championship, but it already leaked out because that's how the media industry is. And even his celebrity and connections couldn't stop Pete Thamel from leaking a story, because Woj and Pete Thamel and a lot of these folks don't care about your life. They don't care about your feelings. Yeah, they're tight, but they don't care about your feelings. Like, look at how they did Nia Long with Ime Udoka. They don't care about your feelings. I think Shams has a little bit more empathy than the others do, but Thamel and Scheffner and Walsh, they don't care about your feelings. So they put that out. The timing didn't make sense to me. That everything that Bomani said about how he didn't want Deion to make it about him, he made it about him. And that was just what happened. And the fact that it was so crazy is that for me, and I'll say that I did enjoy the Deion Sanders era in HBCU football, because admittedly it was really fun. But when he said, when Jackson State was playing Grambling and Grambling made that run in the second quarter, that they're playing down to Grambling, I didn't like that, because how is a team that just cut your lead and you're up 21-17? I understand what the outcome was, but at that point, we're talking about the information from there. How are you playing down to a team that was just sort of like running on you, getting touchdowns? To me, that said that you felt as if you were bigger than this. But people were calling me. I will never forget this. And this is something that I talked to my dad about, because my dad didn't raise a beta male. You know, I don't get into toxic masculinity, but my dad didn't raise a beta male. And I got called a beta male by one of the folks when I called it out. I wasn't even disrespectful. I was like, I didn't really like that comment, because it made it seem as if Jackson State is just so high above Grambling when Grambling was doing good in that second quarter. And I got called a beta male, all these different things. But when he left, now it's like, oh yeah, you was right all along. You were saying this, and it's like people were making concessions for him because he was a celebrity and because it benefited them and it benefited their narrative. But when he left, now it was a whole entirely different conversation. But even people are still defending him, and now it's made to seem as if we're crazy for feeling the way that we feel about how he left, how he's talking, what his daughter said, all the different talking points around him and around HBCUs that comes from the Deion Sanders camp. We're just crazy HBCU alumni, and there's no nuance and context that can happen. And the part that I don't like about it is that Jackson State, you all have to go through Deion Sanders talking. You have to go through all the defending and the back and forth and all these different things. When it's like, y'all supported him. Y'all don't deserve this. And that's the part that I don't like, because I know how it feels being at Fort Valley to have to defend the school when stuff is happening. Oh my God, I was that guy. So I know how that feels. Now, not in this context with Deion Sanders, but I know how that feels. And that's the part that I just really, didn't like about how the experience ended and what the experience entailed, because I just feel like Jackson State didn't deserve that. And there was a better way to go out,
Yeah, man. And at the end of the day, y'all, after the end of the day, you got to understand, like, this man is going to be tied to the hip of Jackson State football because of the simple fact that he won. He won at Jackson State.
Yeah, I mean, but eventually he's gonna have to move on though, and I think that if Colorado does see some level of success, I think we will see the conversation from his camp die down, And I think that football season is when we're truly finally gonna move on, especially if like because I think that this is what's gonna happen. I will give a prediction because this is this HBC overdrive. I'm gonna give a prediction. Okay.
Go ahead,
All
man.
right. I think that MEAC SWAC challenge is going to be really interesting.
Oh yeah.
I think, and I can I can give a real prediction when I see because I like to have context. I think Jackson State could win that. I think Jackson State wins that, gets the revenge for the 2021 Celebration Bowl.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders loses, and Colorado loses by 2 touchdowns to TCU, and some conversations start to happen. That's what I think.
Man.
As of right now. Now, if I go on HBC Pulse Radio on Sirius XM or the YouTube channel and I say something different, I'm not switching up. It might be just from different contexts. But that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking that Jackson State's going to win that South Carolina State MEAC SWAC challenge and probably a thriller. It's probably going to be a really good game. And then, like, there's going to be Colorado, all the media attention. I know I'm going to be watching. And TCU, 2 touchdowns.
First
I don't think that.
It's in the first weekend of that's the first slate of college football games right there. You really think about it. And then the other test, like you said, the other test is basically what we do the following week when we play FAMU in the OBC. This is our last year in the OBC. We have, what we do in the OBC will determine the rest of the season. That's how I feel. That's the way I see it. That's how I feel. What we do against FAMU will go ahead and dictate the rest of the season how TC is going to have the whole team playing and everything. I got Dr. Lori. Dr. Lori, how you doing? But to me, and shout out to Dr. Lori because she came on my show like a couple weeks ago. She did tell us about how he was because he was at FAMU while he was at Florida State. So tell us how he was with back in the day. So but like I said, when it comes down to it, when that first game against South Carolina State, the only thing is if they got a quarterback. The question is if they got a quarterback, what did Buddy Pugh do in the offseason recruiting? Did he get another quarterback to replace Corey Fields? Who are you going to have as a receiver to replace Shaq Davis? Who is going to replace Jablonski Green on the defensive line? How are you going to be able to handle the pretty much the trash talking now from North Carolina Central because they're the MEAC champs and HBCU national champs. So how you gonna do that? Then when we get to, like I said, when we get to the Orange Blossom Classic, all right, Willie, you are in your 5th year
Fifth.
at FAMU. Okay, the last 2 years you don't ran the table after you lost to Jackson State. Basically, you ran the table. What are you going to do different this year than what was done last year to try to to try to have some sort of an upset against Jackson? Because you have to understand the last 2 years you have been outscored 66 to 9. 66 to 9. You have been outscored 66 to 9 because first year in the classic, hard fought defensive game.
Yes.
Right. You know what I'm saying? The elements wasn't in favor for both teams as far as offensively, but defensive wise, it was a barn burner.
I love every second of it.
And it showed what type of team that Jackson had. It also showed what type of team FAMU had after that. So your first game. Last season, the talent on the field was night and day. That's the only thing. The talent on the field was night and day. We had too much speed, and I understand it's Florida. You FAMU, it's Florida. You recruit. You got to recruit Florida. You got speed in Florida. What can you do to account for that 53, 56 point ass whipping you took?
I think they will though. I think because like that game, I'm not gonna predict that until I see really what the MEAC SWAC challenge looks like. I gotta see the film on that and just see what FAMU is coming with as far as their roster, because I think that that's going to be the game of the year.
Yeah.
I think that that is going to determine who makes it out of the East, possibly, because I think that Alabama State has something to say. I honestly think they do. I think Coach Roberts is going to have something to say. But I think that that's going to be game of the year because FAMU has to get that lick back. They have to. That like because that first game, I was like, if the first game was that much of a defensive dogfight, even with the situations that went on with compliance that left the players out, even with Isaiah Land, he came back, and a couple other players that got a chance to come back. I was like, I still think this is gonna be a battle, but it just simply wasn't. And then Shador was out there on his Black Tom Brady swag. It was crazy. I was like, man, is he gonna miss a completion? But I think that this year it's going to be a battle, and I really wish with scheduling, and I know that this is you all's last year on the contract. I really wish that this game could have happened later in the season versus before. Now, I understand openings. I'm a scheduling guy. I talk about scheduling when it comes to the NBA and the NFL. I'm a big proponent of the schedule. But with a game like this, I believe this has to be in last 2 weeks of the season, maybe post homecoming in November. Like maybe the Orange Blossom Classic could have been maybe like a double header, like a NBC has Bayou Classic, ESPN2 has the Orange Blossom Classic at night or something like that. You know what I mean? Because like I feel like it's that important for the East, where you see FAMU, let's say they win out, Jackson State wins out, and now one team has to lose. You know what I mean? Like that's what I would have liked to have seen. But starting off the season, I get it. That was the fireworks to start off the season. But I just think that's going to be a game that we're not going to be able to fully predict if we're trying to predict until we see what that MEAC SWAC challenge looks like and what FAMU has coming in after Isaiah Land leaves. Look, we got Xavier Smith. They're trying to get drafted. So I want to see what FAMU has coming in with the folks they have leaving out.
Right. And another thing, too, the main thing is who's going to be our starting quarterback. This is, in a sense, is you can say some people say it's a it's a 3-man race, but really to me it's a 2-man race. It's between Phillip Short, who's the JUCO transfer, JUCO All-American, and Jason Brown, who started out at St. Francis, ended up at went to Virginia Tech and went to South Carolina. So he has played on the big stage. So that's the main question we have as a team for Jackson State. Who is going to be our quarterback coming up in the fall? We shall see when the spring game, which is April the 15th, 3:00 at the Vet. We shall see who is the better man out there. And also, we shall see how Coach Taylor is going to be, coaching the kids up. But I really want to see what he does when it actually counts and they not hitting each other for play.
For play.
That's the main thing. That's the main thing that I want to see. And also, when it gets down to it, I want to see if Coach Taylor can make actual adjustments from what his assistants are doing. If he feel like, no, we need to go right here on a third and short. or do we need to go on a fourth down? But I don't think anybody of us in Jackson State family wants to hear about a fourth down play from, from just a fourth down play, regardless. We have flashbacks. It brings flashbacks. But man, that's the only things that we want to see. We actually want to see football. We want football. We want to see good football. We want to see hard hitting football. And we want to see our players be able to play and contribute and be a part of the movement that we have. Because in a sense that you see it on Twitter all the time. That guard the yard, that ain't just something that we just say just to be throwing it out there in our Twitter feed. But that's just something that we actually, want to live by. I got somebody coming up, man. What up, Sean? What up, Sean? What up, Sean, man?
Oh man, this dude in the sound effects. Hey, what's good? What's good? Hey, I got a quick question. That I want to bring it back to the Orange Blossom Classic. And brother, if you don't, what's your name again?
Randall.
Yeah, I wanna ask you a quick question, Randall, because I just want to kind of bring last year into perspective, right? Do you think last year's game, the time and the situations, do you think that ultimately had a bigger impact on the loss FAMU took from JSU?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I think that Jackson State came in prepared. I think that, they had time to look at that game film from USC because FAMU really pulled off a Herculean effort with USC. And USC turned out to be, outside of the defense, a pretty good team. Yeah, Drake May that could have got, he's going to be a problem, especially with the Heisman Trophy, in coming years. But I think that when you have 27 players immediately in week 0 that can't play, and then you have some of your players like Isaiah Land that got the opportunity to come back, but you're still trying to get other players to come back because of those compliance issues, that did matter. And then you saw it the next week with FAMU. We look at what Albany State did. Now, for me, I'm a Fort Valley alum. I'm a D2 guy. Like, I knew that Albany State was going to be a tough out for FAMU, but I think that a FAMU that is more focused would have handled Albany State a little bit better. But after that, you start to see them get their footing. Because I think after that Albany State game, I believe it was a bye week, then they had their other games. So I do think that did affect FAMU. But I do think that I'll say maybe 95%, because I think the game plan that Jackson State deployed on defense with Jeremy Musa, I think that played a part as well. Because they were putting pressure on them. I think that they didn't really give them the opportunity to get those passes off. And I believe that did affect them on that offensive side of the ball. But when you have all those players that are out, and then you have key players on that offensive line, Isaiah Land, who is the guy, he might get drafted, that did affect them. So I think that this year it'll be something that is going to be more even, and we're going to see a way better game, because we know with the new AD, Miss Tiffany down there, I think that they're going to be squared away with compliance. So I think that this year we're going to see something a little bit different.
All right, I got a follow-up. So my follow-up question to you is then, if you felt like the game would have been a little bit different, then how do you feel about Isaiah Land's year? Because he wasn't as productive as he was down that stretch as he was last year. Now, let me remind you, at the beginning of the year, Isaiah didn't have a run of sacks. It was against those lesser teams where he started put together 3, 4, 5 sack games that ran his numbers up. We didn't see that this year. Do you still feel like he was injured, plagued the whole year? His hand was really a big issue for him, or something?
I think that it was something, because I know that on HBCU Pulse we did a spotlight of the players that really stood out, and I picked the players for the MEAC out. And when I looked at Isaiah Land's numbers from 2021 2022, it was a big difference. But even with the injury concerns and the numbers looking a little bit different from the award season, him being the defensive player of the year, he still was making a difference. You saw that in that game with Shedeur. Because I think, and I might be getting this wrong because I've seen so many games. I got so much going on in my mind. Did he sack Shedeur? Didn't he?
Yeah, he got a sack this game. He didn't get one last year. He did get a sack in I think it was the second or third quarter. He ended up getting Shedeur held on to the ball trying to go deep. Yep. And Isaiah ran him off his spot, retraced, and Shedeur still had time, but then ultimately he ended up tripping him up.
There we go. Because I was thinking, was that somebody else? So yeah, I mean, I think that the stats might not tell the full story, but one thing I always say, and you see this more prevalent in basketball, is that sometimes when you look at the box score, the full story isn't shown. Because I think that the impact of having Isaiah land on the field and the possibility of him getting to the quarterback, I think that makes you sort of load up on that side to say, hey, let's.
Well, he was one-on-one against JSU.
He was, but I think that the threat of him can also be something that can scare the offense. And I think that a lot of the games that you saw, especially with that they won, you saw the threat of him be something that you had to put into practice. You're the offensive coordinator trying to make sure that quarterback gets the opportunity to throw the ball, even that, the running game is secure. So I think that, the numbers did drop off, but I believe that Isaiah Lane, he still was someone that was making a difference, for FAMU this year, even through the injury concerns and everything like that.
Gotcha. So I just want to kind of throw this. I don't think that this was a better FAMU team. I think what we saw was a better Jackson State team, talent-wise, versus a lesser FAMU opponent. You had you had Isaiah, but that secondary was still questionable, although it got better down the stretch. I just don't see it. But this year, you're saying that this is going to be the time that we should see the gap close between JSU and FAMU?
I think so. I don't think that this FAMU team was demonstrably worse from the one in 2021, because I think that you saw the growth of Xavier Smith. Of course, like you said Isaiah Land didn't have as great of a season as he did in 2021. But I think that the team, after the compliance issues started, to come together a bit more. But I believe that this year, I think Jackson State is going to have a good season. Honestly, really do. I'm not just saying it because I'm on here. I honestly believe that Jackson State is going to have a good season and is going to prove at the very least to the HBCU community that is coaching and is utilizing the pieces that you have over just having a bunch of talent. But I think that when you look at FAMU and the fact that even after they lost against Jackson State, and of course this year they lost to UNC and Jackson State, they won out the rest of the way. I think that says a lot, not only about the coaching of Willie Simmons, but I think it says a lot about the talent that's on the team. So if even with your guys leaving like Isaiah Land and Xavier Smith, you still got guys that are there. I think Moose is still going to be there. You have guys that are there that are going to be coming back, and they're still under that Willie Simmons system. So I believe that.
Right. I'm not just like Jackson State.
I do like Jackson State.
They have a nucleus, but they have a nucleus offensive defense that poses more of a threat to everybody else that's coming back versus the latter part. I think there's more question marks for me. There's more question marks for FAMU going into this Orange Blossom Classic than last year.
That's true. Like I can give you that, but the only thing is that it is something about mentality. And the fact that you got beat that bad, you gotta get it back. I don't care who is on that field. I don't care if Chad Ochocinco is playing for FAMU. You got to get that back, no matter who it is. So I think that that's going to be a big overlapping storyline. Is that this is the year? This is the year that FAMU can feasibly go to the SWAC championship and possibly go to the Celebration Bowl. So I don't think that FAMU is going to take this lightly. And I think that they're going to come out swinging, especially on defense. That's why I'm like, I believe that this game is going to be probably the game of the year, and you're going to see a different level of stakes here because this is the first game for FAMU, and this is going to determine the season possibly. Because Jackson's maybe they do win.
Yeah, it still will determine the season.
Yeah, because maybe
this game will still determine the SWAC East champ.
Mm-hmm. because, like I said, you start out last 2 years. You started out with an L. You have to play catch up, and you have to hope and pray that somebody will beat Jackson State in those two, those 2 years where you started out 0-1 in the division. Like, because this is a divisional game for us.
Yep.
So when you start off 0-1 in the division, and you, let's just say you run off 7 straight, 8 straight, you know what I'm saying? As far as in conference, you still had to kind of play, hope and pray that somebody beats the Jackson State. So that's the main thing. And then another thing too is now you're seeing it where Willie is not worried about going to the playoffs no more. He built the schedule to say I'm going to going to the Celebration Bowl
Pressure.
because they put themselves, they was hoping and praying that they can get into the FCS playoffs with just losing that one game to Jackson and then running roughshod afterward. Whether last season really wasn't roughshod, it was pretty much almost mediocre, but they was winning by the skin of their teeth in certain games. Because I could tell you certain games that they should have lost. That Alabama State game they played where they blocked the field goal and ran it back in for the touchdown with pretty much no time left on the clock. They should have lost that game to Bama State. Should have lost that game to Bama State. Albany State gave them a run for their money.
Talk that talk now.
And that was the game. That was the next game they played after they played Jackson.
Yep.
And Albany State gave them a run for their money, even though in the second half, FAMU kind of pulled it away. Should have lost that game because first half it's a tale of two halves. Tale of two halves. Style makes fights, y'all. And first half, Albany was giving them the business. Second half, FAMU kind of took the reins and said, "Hey, we can't lose to no D2 school."
But at the same time, and Yard Talk said this on Twitter. I've been saying this for a minute. I just personally believe that it's not that, especially on the HBCU side, it's not that big of a skill drop off with Division II. And Albany coming off of that last season was the SIAC champion. So it's not like you're playing a school that is like terrible, middle of the road. Like you're playing the champion, and the champion with that Gabe Gardena coach team that didn't let any SIAC schools score on them. So I think Morehouse scored on them when they played Morehouse. When Morehouse was good in 2021, they were actually good in 2021. Like I think Morehouse got a touchdown, but no SIAC schools were even touching the red zone, end zone with Albany State. So they come in and show they were like that. Now Albany State, they lost to my Fort Valley State University Wildcats. That's our rival, and then Benedict got them. And Benedict went on to win the SIAC championship. But like Albany State was a really good Division II team. And even with West Florida, because I know people were getting upset at me, it's like West Florida is going to be a really good Division II team this year because they even made it to that Final Four of the Division II playoffs. So I'm not saying FAMU is going to lose. And I always say this, Fort Valley State University is my HBCU. But the two HBCUs that I'm really drawn to and that I probably would have loved to have gone to had I not gone to Fort Valley State University, FAMU number one, because I love me some FAMU, and Southern. Mm-hmm. So I'm drawn to those two schools just naturally. I always have been. I'm sorry. It's the truth. I love Jackson State too. But FAMU and Southern have always been it for me. All right. Even though I was at Fort Valley. So I'm be rooting for FAMU. But West Florida is also going to be interesting because West Florida is a contender in Division II. So I just sort of hate when it's like, oh, you're playing a D2 school. You're playing a D2 school. Well, what D2 school are you playing? Because if it's Albany State, if it's Tuskegee, even on some good years, because put Fort Valley in some of these games, especially with what Sean Gibbs is doing. Fort Valley might give you a run for your money. I'm just saying, put Benedict on your. Come on, like come on now.
I would have been better as far as with the schedule that they did this season. Instead of having that Lincoln University school on their schedule, I would have put a Benedict on their schedule. See how they did. like I would have. I probably would have put Benedict. I probably would have put Fort Valley back on the schedule. I would probably put like you said, Tuskegee. Any school that or let's just say let's not even do D2. I would say put Tennessee State back on your schedule. I would
Mhm.
say put North Carolina A&T back on there. I would
Yes.
say run it up with Hampton. You know what I'm saying? Any of those schools right there that's in like other conferences or independent, I would have put them on the schedule like quick, fast, in a hurry, and see what you can do with them.
Yeah, and that the conversation about FAMU not making the FCS playoffs, and then Albany State was mentioned, and that talking point ceased really quickly. But I just think it was so wrong because, and I'm gonna bring this back up because I don't know if people heard my take on it because I did a show with D2 HBC football about it. Is what do we value? Because do we value the culture of HBCU football and the matchups and the rivalries, or do we value like, hey, making it to the playoffs in which the teams are losing money?
Right.
Like, and it's like put it like if Fort Valley on the schedule for FAMU in 2019 didn't factor in or didn't stop FAMU from making the playoffs in 2021, and then you beat a champion in Albany State. And I know the champion part and all the different stuff didn't matter because the committee looked at it as a D2 school. But like, instead of just trying to make the playoffs, make the Celebration Bowl. If you don't make the Celebration Bowl, give your fans and the HBCU community that's watching the games good matchups. And that's the problem that I have in the playoff conversation. Even in Division II, give us good matchups. Like Benedict, like they had a great matchup with Albany State. Fort Valley had a great matchup with Albany State. You know what I'm saying? Like Tuskegee had a great matchup with Clark Atlanta with Willie Slater down at Clark Atlanta. Tuskegee had great matchups with Central State and all these different things. I would rather see the matchups versus trying to go to the playoffs. When are we really equipped, to make that happen? Are we really equipped to go and win the championship right now? Because the offensive line and the defensive line is where those championships are won. You know what I'm saying? So like I want to see FAMU versus Tuskegee. We saw Valley versus FAMU and they beat us. But still, okay, I would like to see that. I would love to see Benedict versus FAMU. Like we getting Alabama A&M versus Tuskegee. Great games. I want to see more of that. We're getting Alabama State versus Tuskegee too. You know what I mean? Like I value the matchups more than, can I make the playoffs?
Right. And this is a good conversation to have right here. And next Tuesday, I won't do it next Tuesday because I actually got to work next Tuesday. So it'll probably be next Thursday. I'll do this again in the afternoon. I have to bring you back on here.
Yeah, man. I mean, I want to say, hey, thank you to Reggie Bird, man. Listen, this is an Electra Voice RE320. Yeah, I think RE20. This is the radio standard microphone, and I paid a pretty penny for it because I wanted to get on. I bought this 2020 before I got on Sirius XM, and it made a lot of sense as an investment. So I appreciate you saying my microphone is clear. I'm glad it's clear. Okay, I love it.
I know my microphone got to be clear. Look, I just got this microphone not too long ago, but I just got a new soundboard, so that's the reason why it sounds like that. But I got a condenser on here, but I'm not even tripping on that. But
you good.
As long as people can hear me and they can hear me clear and straight, I'm good.
Yeah, and when you look at like the StreamYard software, it distorts, like the microphones sometimes. And then like with me, I want to get into microphone conversations. We'll be talking for hours, but man, like the filter condenser feature with my Rodecaster that I got, man, I had to do some science with this microphone. So hopefully I sound radio cool, because that was what I was looking for. Because before I put the filtering settings on here, man, it honestly sounded like I was in a church. I'm telling you, but now it sounds like I'm on the radio now, man. So I'm glad.
It's not real clear. It sounds clear as day, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man, for coming on to the show. And if it's any time like we could do this next Thursday, just let me know. It's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like just let me know, man. I definitely would love to come back on. And I want to let everybody know real quick before I go. Thank you all, for hearing me out, for having me on. Make sure to follow HBCU Pulse on Instagram and YouTube at HBCU Pulse. We have our YouTube channel, 24,000 subscribers. Twitter and TikTok, the HBCU Pulse. Twitter, we're really trying to grow the Twitter out. Sirius XM show, HBCU Pulse Radio. Every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. The podcast comes out on podcast platforms at 10 a.m. We're talking about if the state is trying to take over HBCUs, the public HBCUs. We're talking about Jackson State. We're talking about Fort Valley. We're talking specifically about Tennessee State. And also we're talking about Ron DeSantis and House Bill 999, where he's trying to put the Stop Woke Act into law. And he's already doing a lot of these crazy situations with New College of Florida. So we're going there and we're talking about that. So make sure to tune into that. But one last thing before I go, listen, if you all can support HBCU Pulse, we are a small Black media company trying to make it happen. Make sure to donate to us. The graphic is up on my personal Twitter, Arthur Randall B, and also it's up on HBCU Pulse's Twitter. You can cash up us at $HBCU Pulse or go to paypal.me/HBCU Pulse to donate to us. We're trying to grow, and any donation matters to us, and I really appreciate it, man. So I appreciate all y'all. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, thank you, bro. Thank you for coming on, bro. And so I'm gonna hit you back up on later on Twitter, man. So we get that all that set up.
Yes, almost ever. Thank y'all. All right, y'all.
All right, man. That's my boy Randall Barnes, HBCU Post. Like I said, man, he was real cool, super cool to come on. We had Herbert Seward, who runs HBCU Digital, to come on the show. Also, real cool to get his perspective of what we was talking about today. Bro, you killing me, bro. You're killing me. Um, killing me. But anyway, man, I want to put something out there. I want to bring this picture up here. And this is my guy, Brian Johnson. If y'all don't know, like I said, Brian was my first co-host when I first started doing this during football season. He did it's history, like you said. Uh, he was the 8th Black player to play in the NHL. As you see, he's in the Red Wing hockey sweater right now, man. But he sent this to me the other day when I last week when I hit 125,000 views on the show. So it was apparent to me where he was saying like, dude, you making history because he made history, so you're gonna make history, and you're gonna do what you can do and be good at what be good at your craft. Because I can say this, I'm I'm still a newbie, even though I'm about to be a year in this thing, May 24th. But but my thing is I'm always trying to improve. Brian is in Canada. So Brian is in Canada and he works in Canada. So when he comes on, he'll let me know when he comes on, and we all talk about football and major stuff, because the whole thing about it is he's teaching me about you know being a black man in this society, but we also teaching him about HBCUs and what we got going on, and how we can improve our universities and institutions. So man, I just want to put this picture up here, and if he's watching it, he probably gonna catch the replay. He watching it, man. Uh, this for you, man, because like I said, we it's supposed to be for Black History Month, but this is Black History every day, y'all. So I just want to put that out there. I just want to put that out there. And he is a good dude, man. He's a great dude to talk to, man. And I appreciate for what he has done for me and to actually help me grow this platform. Because remember, I started doing this and I probably had like two, 300 people as subscribers, and then we just started growing. We just started growing, and to have him on the show, even when my guy Sean, who's on here earlier, asking the questions earlier, uh, he was another co-host. Like we did a thing, and it's getting this platform out, man. So anybody that's there to help me grow, to help all of us grow in this space, it is indicative that I give my dudes they flowers, like, on the real. So that's something that I want to do right now. Now I wanna before we leave up out of here, I wanna talk about uh what is going on in Twitter world, y'all. Now Mr. Campbell is real. He's a down to earth type dude. He lets me know what's going on. Also, he advises me on certain things, what to say, what not to say, what to cover, kind of like what to cover. But in the end, I'm my own man. Um, so I'm just gonna say this, and we just gonna leave it at that, y'all. I don't care what anybody has to say to me or about my platform, about anything else. But what will not be done is to go out and try to slander other people. So from this day forward, y'all, I'm, you know, any other content creator that you probably not cool with, we're not gonna slander it. We're not gonna go out there and slander. We're not gonna go out there and talk bad, because what we trying to do, y'all, we're trying to elevate this program. We're trying to elevate this channel. Um, we try to get it to where we can get sponsorships for this channel. We're trying to get it to where I can get media credentials for this channel. And um, the thing about it is, we ain't gonna be able to get all that if we keep tearing each other down. And I just telling the truth. We're not gonna be able to get all this if we keep tearing each other down. So what I'm going to do, on my platform is uh, extend an olive branch. This man is not my rival. I am nowhere near what he has as far as subscribers and views and what he does with his show. Okay, but I am going to be on wax. It is going to be on wax. That I am always going to be a proponent. I am always going to be an advocate. I'm always going to be a talking head for our respective historically black colleges and institutions. I'm going to call people to the carpet if it needs to be called. But I'm also going to be out there to praise our institutions, uh, our athletic teams on the success that they are having. Um, Respect all HBCUs. If you're in this game to talk about HBCUs, of course we're gonna have to talk about the good and the bad. We have to talk about the good and the bad. But if you're going to talk about the bad, you also got to talk about what can we do to make that turn that bad into a good, and what can we do to turn that good into a great, and what can we turn that great into an immaculate. So that's something that I want to put out there. It's kind of on my soul for a second, because I could, we can be Negroes, we could be black people, we could roast each other, we could clown on each other, but um, what is not going to be done on the show is we're not gonna go out there and try to slander other people who's in this type of space because it at the end of the day, we all trying to eat. We all try to eat. We all try to get to a certain spot on here. So um I will extend my olive branch to him, but if you don't want to take it, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. That that's cool with me. That just lets me know that uh, there's still some there's still some growing and maturing that that individual has to do, and that's something that just I just have to put it out there. You are right. Correct, Daryl. It is enough out there for everyone to eat, and it will be a good show. It will be a good show, but at the end of the day, if they don't want to take my apology, they don't want to take the olive branch. That's cool with me. I did my job. I did what it was on. I did what was on my heart, and that's it. And that's all. But I will not. I will not, and I'm gonna emphasize on it. I will not uh, let anybody slander any guest or any of my co-hosts on my platform. That's for damn sure. So I won't do anything like that. You're not gonna do anything. Um, let's just basically gatekeep this channel right here. Let's gatekeep it. You know, that's how I see it. But it there would not be any type of slander of any of my co-hosts or any guests on the show on this platform, regardless. Chat, uh, Adrian, the chat, y'all in the chat, y'all are some of y'all got some screws loose, but I still love you. But other than that, what I'm saying is, would anybody come in here that try to slander any of our guests, any of our panel co-hosts, let them know we don't rock like that. Let them know we don't rock like that. And I just have to put that out there so it won't be no backlash. There won't be nothing. Somebody trying to come for me because I'm always gonna stay ready. Gotta stay ready. You don't have to get ready. That's all you gotta do. But anyway, man, it was a great show tonight. It was a great show today, y'all. I'm not doing anything later on today. I am chilling at the house. Uh, probably gonna get some workout in, and then tomorrow, don't know what I'll probably do tomorrow. Whatever is in the news right now, but uh, tomorrow, tomorrow I will cover the first day of the SWAC tournament, the SWAC and the MEAC tournament, because there are games that's going on tomorrow. Russell will talk all the noise when the MEAC play the SWAC. Just be respectful about it. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is. But as always, man, this has been another HBCU Overdrive Live, where HBCUs matter. Make sure that you like this stream. Make sure that you comment, share, most of all, subscribe. Uh, I have it pinned to become a member of the channel at the top of the chat if you're on the phone or if you're on your laptop. Also, make sure you hit that notification bell to get everything HBCU Overdrive, to where you get all notifications about when I go on and what time I go on and so forth. I will probably be add another tier for membership on the show for the channel. So be on the lookout for that. Any ideas, any ideas, any type of idea you have for the show, please email it. Email it. Email it to me. hbcuoverdrive@gmail.com. Uh, and I always read everything. Even in the comments, I read everything. Uh, so email it to me. And like I said, at the end of the day, y'all, at the end of the day, the culture is never going to be for sale. So let's just remember that, y'all. But until then, y'all be blessed. Y'all stay safe. And most of all, y'all stay dangerous. We out of here. Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Be here, be there, be here, be there, be here, whatever you want to do it. MEAC SWAC first round, quarterfinal, wrap up show. First day. All right. Peace.